All right. It says we're live, Pastor Mac. So I guess we'll see.
Okay. All right. Well, I can't help all the bright sun coming in and out.
You mean the Shekinah?
Yes, that's it. That's right.
You guys, it's just that's where you're going to. You're just doing a big drive-by of the Shekinah glory as you head further into the mountains. Hey, I wanted to ask you how it went last night, because we were praying for you.
It went well. Very rural church, bivocational pastor, typical Baptist church that nobody ever thinks about, nobody ever goes to. Good meeting with those folks, sweet, kind, way out, rural Alabama church. But just a good time just to call them to reach their community for Christ.
That's good, man. I see those statistics go by pretty often. A lot of people don't realize like how statistically most pastors are bivocational.
Yeah, and it's becoming increasingly more so.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that bivocational pastors are going to eclipse, those of us that are full time here real soon. And we're having a big conference. New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary, the Caskey Center, is putting on a big conference at Valleydale for Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, all these areas around for bivocational pastors, and it's free. The Caskey group is paying for the whole thing. So any bivocational pastor that's out there will be able to be a part of it.
Yeah, that's great. I'm
having to throw this one in the back.
Yeah. Just as long as you don't throw them out the window, so you can stay married.
Well, I'd love to do that, but I'm afraid what would happen. Debbie said I'd be following him. So
it's clear what the pecking order is around there.
Yeah, it's very clear.
Yeah, that's
clear to me if it's not clear to anybody else. No, but they're putting on this, and it's free. They're paying for it, which is a great story. And bivocational pastors and their wives. Deb's doing a big thing for the wives of these pastors. I'll be speaking, and one of the professors at New Orleans will be here and will be speaking as well.
That's great.
So, and you'll be leading the music. So it's great. If you're a bivocational pastor out there, you need to check it out and come on and be a part of it.
Yeah, well, I can at least guarantee that the preaching will be excellent. But yeah, it's called the No Restraints Conference, and
that's right.
That's happening in Pastor, is it
it's
August?
Okay. Yeah. 13th and 14th.
The 13th and 14th, it's a Friday, Saturday. So yeah, that's a great advertisement. If there's any bivocational pastors listening to this, y'all need to check that out, or you can email one of us and we'll get that figured out.
The Caskey Center pays for the whole thing. We're gonna have our kitchen staff is gonna prepare the meals, and they've got hotels lined up that they're taking care of for every bivocational pastor and his wife that wants to come.
I love that.
Did you see me just light up right there? That was kind of the way Moses' face shone after he came down.
I know. I can't look directly at you. It's just like after you preach, I'm like, well, I can't look directly at him. He's been with the Lord.
Yeah. Oh golly.
Well, yesterday was a pretty good day. June 27th, you were preaching there, and well, I guess we do need to talk about the message. I know sometimes I joke and we don't get to the message in time, but I guess, did you want to give before we get into it, did you want to give people kind of a quick travel update of what you're doing these next couple of weeks?
Well, I'm headed to write for the next week and a half the last chapter of my dissertation. What I hope now, I've sent everything else off to the editor. I've got the last chapter to write, and that's of course the critical one where I've got to pull everything together. And so that's what I'm going to be doing while Debbie just lays around and eats bonbons.
I find that difficult to believe. But yeah, you were telling me some about that yesterday, and maybe when we get back in the office, we can hash it out some more. But I'm amazed at how many original documents you're going back to in your study of the Anabaptist. And I've joked about it before, but I am serious. You finally hooked me with some of these stories, so I'm looking forward to hearing more after you get more written down. But I said we were going to get to the message. I think there's a couple points that we could hit on this that would be helpful for well, definitely helpful for me. That's I've told people before, like a lot of the things that we get to talk about on here are just questions that I had, and I just hope that they're useful for other people as well. But I went and looked up that one word, the Greek word that was so interesting to me. I think it's there in verse 12, and you talked about when Peter says the fiery trial, he uses a word that's like for like smelting or blacksmithing or melting or something like that.
Yeah, it's what an assayer will do with silver or gold when they want to purify, when they want to get it as pure as they can get it. They'll put the mineral or the metal down into a crucible and heat it until it liquefies. And when it does that, all the dross, all the stuff that's not silver, not gold, that's in it will come to the top, and they scoop it out. And so that's the word picture that he's using there.
The fiery trial that the Lord wants to that the Lord will take us through. I think and you went, especially in the second service, you went really, really direct to say, like, does the Lord lead us into these trials? And you said, you bet. And I guess a good cross reference would be it's at least in the three synoptic gospels where the Spirit leads Christ into the wilderness to be tempted.
Yeah. Well, look at what God does with Abraham when he tells him, take your son, and then he comes out and he specifically says, your only son, and to the mountain Moriah, to the mountain that I'm going to show you. Right. You take him there, you go up and you offer him. Now, was God leading Abraham into that test? Yes. Now, the test is different than a temptation.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Give us that distinction.
Well, I don't know that I can, especially off the top of my head. But, there are times that God will test us. He tells Israel all these years, he led you through testing you to see what was in your heart and to know whether or not you would follow him, whether or not you would do what he's calling you to do, that you'd be obedient. So, yes, God does allows us from time to time to walk through these periods of testing.
Yeah, and yesterday, just knowing that text was coming, and I tried to have us sing some songs that would set that up, and we're singing how firm a foundation, when through fiery trial your pathway shall lie, my grace all sufficient will be your supply. And that's something that's so easy to say. Oh yeah, obviously that hymn is unbelievable. But like, it's in some ways it's so easy to say, it can be easy to sing, but I'm looking out on the congregation, and of course, Pastor, you and me, we know so many of the people in the congregation. We know some of the fiery trials that they've endured, and it's just if not for the continued grace of the Lord, these people couldn't be still singing the praises of their God with all that they've gone through.
Well, the thing is that, it gives people a lot of consternation that you mean to tell me that we're gonna, that God's gonna lead me into some kind of trial. Well, listen, if God didn't care about us and love us and promise to be with us, you wouldn't get. The thing is this: Christians should not be fearful or apprehensive, or worry about going into those when the Lord takes you through a testing period. That's why I think he says down here, it's time for judgment to begin with the household of God. Well, who else does God work with but his own people?
Amen.
He doesn't work with sinners, because sinners are in rebellion against him. So he does begin to work with his own people. or he does work. Look at what he did with Moses. Look at what he did with David. Look at what he did with Solomon.
Right. That's why I always roll my eyes a little bit when people are like, well, God will never give you more than you can handle. I'm like, well, he sure did to Moses. He sure did to Abraham.
The thing is he's there. He's with us
exactly.
through that.
And he's there with us in this.
I love that passage in Isaiah where it talks. Let me see if I can turn back over here and find it in Isaiah.
You going to 41?
Where it says that the waters will not overflow you, and though you walk through the fire, it won't scorch you. You know, I'm with you. You're mine. That's what we need to remember in those moments when we're going through a trial. Is that, hey, God's working on me. God's doing something. And I gave the 3 points. You know, there's always a proving, there's always a purging, and there's always a patterning.
Yes.
God's proving us, not that he doesn't know, it's that I need to know. The purging is that he's getting that dross out of my life, the stuff that doesn't need to be there.
Yes.
And then, you know, the third thing is he's patterning me, he's shaping me into the image of Christ, as Paul talks about in Romans chapter 8.
Well, and you talked about, speaking of the image of Christ, that was one of the more interesting points that you made from the text about how there's a fellowship in suffering, not only fellowship with other believers, but fellowship with Christ himself, because we join in his sufferings. Can you hit that point again? I thought that was very helpful.
Yeah, I had a lot of, especially senior adults yesterday that came by and just made the comment. That was so helpful to me that we shared in the suffering. Whenever a Christian suffers, and you're going through some kind of suffering that is not of your own making, let's say, about here, is that if you do wrong because you did something that was wrong or sinful, then that's to be expected. But when you suffer through something that's not of your own making, you're sharing in the sufferings of Christ. Christ suffered because of his righteousness. Christ suffered because of his goodness. Christ suffered because he came to forgive man's sin. And so because of his righteousness, they punished him. Because of his righteousness, they crucified him. And so when we suffer for the sake of righteousness, we're sharing in the sufferings of Christ.
I think that's an important point. You broke up a little bit, but to reiterate, like Peter says, if you're going to suffer for these wrong things you do, that's not like there's no benefit or blessing from that. It's when you suffer for good things. That's right.
You know, you did it. I had a lawyer, great lawyer in my church in North Carolina. He said, if you can't do the time, don't do the crime. He was the highest paid criminal attorney in North Carolina. He was something else. But that's the thing. If you suffer because you've done something wrong, you just don't need to be shocked at that.
Well, and I think that there's even a smaller illustration of that where people talk about like, well, I go to share the gospel and everybody's persecuting me. I go to share the gospel and people are persecuting me. And I'm like, well, I don't think people are persecuting you. I think that you're just kind of being a jerk. Like you're not sharing in a kind way.
That's exactly the other thing that you want to spend time talking about. That is, do you have the attitude of Christ?
Yes.
Do you have the disposition of Christ? Do you have the kindness of Christ? You know, sharing the gospel shouldn't be jumping in somebody's face and beating them over the head with a 5-pound Bible. That's not what we're talking about. It's. I'll give you an example. I had the sweetest nurse back in North Carolina. In fact, I married she and her husband, and she was telling me she'd been a nurse for, 20 years. She said she walked into the operating room. She was up with the doctor that she was with, and She said he was about to perform an abortion. She looked at him and she said, I can't do this.
Hmm.
And he said, if you can't stay in here and do this with me, you're fired. She said, well, I'm fired. And she turns and she walks out. Well, that's taking a stand for righteousness. She was not ugly. She was not belligerent. She was not in any way unchristlike, but she took a stand for what was right. And you know what? God just blessed her life.
Mm.
Just in so many ways, blessed her life. That's the next thing that he says here. He said, if you are reviled for the name of Christ, you're blessed. That's a blessing. To be reviled for taking a godly stand and for standing for Christ, there's a blessing to it. And as I said yesterday, that's not an emotional, giddy, silly type of experience. It's a real, objective experience of having the presence of God rest on your life. That's the blessing.
Well, and you did a great job explaining that yesterday. So as always, I'll encourage people to go back and listen to that. It should already be live on YouTube and everywhere. I think that'll probably wrap us up here for today. Praise the Lord for technology that we were able to connect
really.
even over the phone. But I guess we should tell the people what our plans are for next week, because we'll still be both of us will be on the go for the 4th of July. Or at least I'll be up in Maryland. Do they have internet up in Maryland? You go to the east a lot.
I don't know.
Okay.
I have no idea. That's getting up above the Mason-Dixon line, and I'm not sure anything about up there.
Well, I'll go. It's technically the last state below the Mason-Dixon line, but I'll go.
Yeah, that's right. You're right.
I'll go give it a shot, and I'll let you know. Maybe we can even do it a little early. I'm going to be in the Eastern time. We'll both be in the Eastern time zone. Huh.
Yeah, I will be just barely over into it. Yeah. So you have a good time. You know, your young assistant's going to be leading music. Barry's going to be preaching.
Yeah.
We're having church on the 4th. Great crowds. Yeah. You know, Pastor Jeff always talks about June being special. Listen, I thought we had record crowds yesterday.
That second service was packed, and it was just such a joy to hear the people. I mean, we heard the people singing the first service too, but
and we've got so many people working over at the church in Old Town. They're over there working. We've got a team that landed yesterday in Central Asia.
It's amazing.
We've got a whole group that's up doing mission work in New York.
Yes.
And everybody else traveling, and there we were. You know, the Lord just was blessing. We had I thought it was a great crowd, and they had a great crowd over at church at Old Town as well.
Oh, great!
They
I didn't hear about that yet.
Of the children over there, and it's just unreal. So
we are blessed right now.
It's exciting to be in the midst of the blessing of God.
Yes, it is. So let's not take it for granted. Let's steward it well. Let's keep working hard, and I know you'll be working hard on that dissertation. I'm going to get everything ready for myself to be on vacation next week. But you and me can chat. We'll chat on the 5th and catch up and
we'll do that.
Tell old war stories and stuff. I don't know.
Good. Yeah.
That's right. All right. Well,
hey, listen, you know, by the time you get to the 4th, the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of July was the Great Battle of Gettysburg that literally, I think that is the turning point in American history. So maybe on the 5th, we can talk about the 4th and the 1st, 2nd, 3rd as well.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, we can. I'll get down some of my Civil War histories and brush it back up so that I can act like I know what I'm talking about. Well, that's what I do normally anyway.
Battles were fascinating. How they fought battles was fascinating.
We can throw Antietam in there as well. I know that was another important one.
I've been there for that battle.
I wrote a paper when I was in 7th grade about Pickett's charge, so I'll have to maybe go back and reread that. I was probably smarter back then. I was homeschooled.
Oh golly! All right,
drive safe out there, Pastor.
All right. Bye-bye.
See ya.